Hey everyone, it's Winston from Happier Abroad. I'm here with two friends, my longtime friend Rock and our special guest Frank from New Zealand. Frank is an avid traveler. He is a teacher, and he's done a lot of hiking, and he has a lot of interests, and he does a lot of book reviews too. So yeah, hello Frank, welcome. Good to see you.
Winston, yeah, thanks for having me along.
Okay, so
And oh yeah, and
Rock.
my friend Rock has agreed to moderate this, so he's gonna be asking the questions and stuff.
okay, well, thanks very much. Frank is somebody I've known for several years. I met in person in Taiwan, and since that time, we've kept in close touch on WhatsApp, lots of voice memos and such. And Frank has got a very avid or a very broad, happier abroad history that spans Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, and South America. But his home country is in New Zealand, where he is now, and where he's kind of rebased himself, reestablished after living, I think, well over a decade, the happier abroad lifestyle. So he's an example of somebody who's gone full cycle. And he's done a lot of great things. He speaks two other languages besides English, or maybe three, actually. He has, he has a lot of experience with, foreign women, foreign places, foreign cultures, foreign food. And I want to let Frank say a little bit more about himself because he's a very interesting guy.
Okay, thanks, Rock. Thanks for that introduction. So I met Rock in Taiwan in 2016, and I met Winston too. So I met them both personally a couple of times, and I've been down to where Winston lives, Chiayi, down in Taiwan, and we hung out, and that was cool, and we've been in touch ever since. I'll just go quickly through my Happy Abroad history. I'll keep it in the context of Happy Abroad and maybe what people from Happy Abroad are interesting to hearing about. So, I'll talk about the girls, the jobs, the different countries. So going way back, I went to an all-boys school. And I think when I came out of that, first went to university when I was 18, there were definitely opportunities with girls there. But I really didn't have any clue on how to approach girls or talk to girls. It was like I'd been in prison for 5 years and never seen any women when I got to university. I wish I could go back in time, but of course you can't. So I finished my university degree in about 3 years. And then I did some odd jobs around New Zealand. I was landscape gardening. I went to Australia. I kind of worked in the countryside on farms and so on. And then I saw an ad in the paper when I was in Melbourne. I had a job replacing the rubbish bins around Melbourne City, and I saw an ad for teachers in China. And I'd done a course on how to teach English to adults. My parents had paid for it because they kind of saw that I was kind of aimless in life, and they thought that might be a good thing for me to do. I don't think they want me to go to China. So I saw this ad in the paper to go to China, Tianjin, which is a city just down. It's about an hour from Beijing, or was in those days when there was no high-speed train. So this was 2001, and I turned up in Tianjin, and I just remember, I'd only been to Australia. New Zealand's a very small place. We don't really have any big cities. It's only 5 million people. And it was just amazing. The first thing I noticed is that the pollution in the sky, but then just the number of people. They were drying rice on the side of the motorway. So it seemed at that stage, China seemed kind of primitive to me. It seemed kind of old. And even when I got into town, they put me up in a hotel, and I couldn't even cross the road because I was so scared of the traffic. So it was all very new. But the thing I noticed was, in terms of, I've always had my father had a lot of problems with depression, and I had low mood. As soon as I went to China, that all went away for me because every day was so exciting. The first night when I was...
What year is this, Frank? What year?
This is 2001.
All right.
So this is, 22 years ago, and I was 22 years of age. So really, my mood lifted when I first went to China. People were interested in me. I became interested in the culture. And the first night I was there, I remember we got kind of drunk and we were eating turtle for dinner. And then we went and we got these massages by these beautiful girls. And I was just like, wow, what is happening here? Like nothing like this had ever happened to me before. And then my first year in China, I used to have nightmares that I was back in New Zealand. So I really went through that honeymoon period in China there. Something else which I think socially is important, where a lot of people go overseas to these jobs in Asia, is if they're teaching at a school and there are other English teachers, they have a group of friends who they can hang out with once they get there. And what you find is if you're from New Zealand, Canada, Australia, Ireland, USA, you really have a lot in common. If you're kind of an English speaker from a middle-class background, you have a lot in common with those people. So even the other day, I sent a message to a guy I taught at university with in Shanghai in 2002. I just sent him a voice message. I hadn't talked to him for years. And he called me and we talked on the phone for an hour. He's got a Kenyan wife now. So those bonds you made with other foreigners way back then were very special. I guess as time went on, China got a little bit harder. It's a culture where the local people look at you as very foreign and see you in a certain way. So the honeymoon period wore off after a while. I ended up spending some time in Shanghai, and then I moved to Wuhan, which I had a job which paid quite a lot. But by the time I went to Wuhan, the magic of China had kind of worn off for me. The people were not so friendly there. The infrastructure was bad. So I made the decision. I saved quite a bit of money. And basically from there, I wanted to go somewhere very different. So Argentina had just had a crash a couple of years ago in the economy. It used to be an expensive country to go to, but it was very cheap then. So I moved over to Argentina, and that's when the Latin American thing started for me. So that's kind of how the start of my Happy Abroad thing, Rock.
Well, keep going. I mean, tell us about Argentina and wherever the other places you went in Brazil and what you did and everything. Your job.
Okay. So I went traveling for a little while in Europe and I went to New York and then I ended up in Argentina. That's just where I decided I wanted to go. I guess I wanted to learn Spanish. I remember when I first went to Argentina, some of the only people I could talk to were the Chinese shopkeepers. That was kind of weird. But Argentina was a great place to hang out then. It was very cheap. At that stage. That was 2004. But I had a lot of money saved at that stage. So I kind of stayed in hostels and had a blast, traveled around the country. But it was kind of clear to me that I wasn't going to get a job there or anything which paid. So I had this teaching experience from China. So in fact, just by luck, guy.
Oh, jeez. It's like there's a pause.
And they gave me the job. So I crossed over the Andes Mountains into Chile. And it was at a school which was really the kind of the richest kids in Chile went to, very upper class. I remember one student, his dad owned the gold mine, one of the gold mines up north. So they were kind of privileged kids. But the job, again, played pretty well. I didn't like Chile as much as Argentina. Argentina's got a very European vibe. You can walk around the city and it's got nice architecture. Chile is more based on America in terms of you need to get around. People get around more in a car. They're sort of middle class up. It's more based on malls. So I didn't like that city so much. I didn't find the people are a bit colder. I think Chilean people, if you make friends with them and get to know them, they're better. But they're known as the English of South America because they're not so gregarious as other South Americans. A big conflict for me always was, to go overseas and people say, Mark made a video. There's a channel we watch and we've discussed, Winston, Rock and I, of this guy, Mark in the Philippines. And he's a guy sort of 68 he interviews foreign guys in the Philippines. And he's all up for telling people to come over to the Philippines and live here. And Winston's up for that as well, the whole happy abroad movement. But for a lot of us, the first step in is to go teach English, which I think is a great idea, but I think it has an expiry date for a lot of people. So a big conflict was, for me, was teaching, of that I'm not really an extrovert, so I don't particularly like teaching. I find it quite a draining job. So after teaching there a year in Chile, I just decided to come home to New Zealand, and I did a little bit more study, but I didn't really last long here back in New Zealand. When I came back to New Zealand,
Frank, do you mind if I stop you? How long did you spend in South America, and what countries did you go to?
That first time, that was the first time I went to South America. That was about a year and a half.
And did you learn Spanish?
I would say in that first block in South America, my Spanish kind of got to maybe lower intermediate, mainly because I was teaching at an English medium school, so I wasn't really immersed in my job. I didn't do any formal study. So that very first trip, not to a high level.
And you went to Chile and Argentina only?
We went. We went for. I think we went to 3 weeks to Colombia.
Awesome. Okay.
And one thing about, go ahead.
You know what? After you get to part 2, then I'll ask you more questions. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't really want. I don't have to go through everything, but it's just kind of a long story.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can
let's keep going.
Yeah. We'll go fast. Summarize the key points, especially in your social life, your business life, and where you felt happy.
Oh, okay. Something I got to say about Argentina is that the girls are beautiful and they seem friendly. Okay, something here in New Zealand, if you go to a bar, nobody really talks to you. If you try and talk to a whole bunch of people in a bar in New Zealand, they'll think you're a little bit weird, right? But when you go to Argentina, you can talk to anybody. You can talk to very beautiful girls. But that doesn't mean you're going to get any action with them. They're going to go home with you or anything. What I noticed is that the South American guys go and talk to all the girls in the bar, and the girls quite enjoy talking to people. But they've got, with Western women, American women, Kiwi women, they think if you try and flirt with them or something, you're a creep, right? But there, it's very much part of the culture, and women have very good defenses for kind of, talking to you a certain point and then kind of getting rid of you. Now, when I went over to Chile, the girls weren't as good as looking. Okay, gringo value didn't really have any value in Buenos Aires. So that's something, if you ask where's a good place to go in Argentina, I'll give you another suggestion. When I went over to Santiago, the girls weren't as good looking, but definitely they were much more interested. It would be, you could go to a bar or club and you could start kissing a girl very easily over there. Not necessarily take her home, but to start something up or start dating her. In Chile, it's probably...
Which place do you think Winston would like better, Chile or Argentina, and why?
Winston would probably... If I was going to recommend somewhere for Winston, I would recommend him like a second-tier city in Argentina rather than... Why? Because I think Chile... It's not necessarily easy to kick off with people unless you're in a bar and people are drinking, like to get to know them. But those second tier cities in Argentina, like Tucumán up in the north, where the culture is a bit different. You go towards the Andes. They're a bit more. There's more indigenous people up there, but it just you have some kind of gringo factor up there. So I'd recommend that for Winston.
Or Chinito factor. Now, do you think today, I've heard that Argentina is still quite cheap. Do you think what you did back then could be done today?
Definitely. We went again in 2019. In fact, I was last year in January 2020, and it seemed very cheap to me. Cheaper than went to Indonesia that same year. Some things seemed cheaper in Argentina. Seemed very cheap. We were doing Airbnbs, the food, everything.
What about the approachability, like the openness of people, the approachability, social approachability of the women, like you mentioned, and the attitude?
I don't think Argentine women, okay, there's always exceptions. I don't think they've got a bad reputation as being a bit arrogant, and they say they're a bit hysterical. So they'll mess you around a lot, and they'll maybe be friendly with you, but to get anything going, I haven't seen a lot of guys having success in Buenos Aires. Now, there is if I was single and I was going to go into Buenos Aires, what I would do is there is a huge population now of quite well-educated Venezuelan women who've gone there because of the problems in Venezuela. And you can meet them very easily. They're working in the restaurants. They're working, handing out flyers on the street. They're kind of working, lower status jobs, but they're very friendly. And I have a friend who runs a restaurant. He said he's never going to hire Argentinian waitresses again because they give bad service and they're snobby. And the Venezuelans have got a much better reputation. And last time I was when I was in Argentina in 2014, in fact, I dated a Venezuelan girl. So if I was going to go to Argentina, I would try and date Venezuelan girls.
So let me ask you this. Could a 45-year-old guy, gringo, or someone like Winston even, go and, make a girlfriend 25 to 30, early 30s? How difficult do you think that might be? I mean, a quality girlfriend.
There's another factor, I think, in Asia where really English is held up on a pedestal. And often you get a girlfriend and part of your attraction is she speaks English to you. I think in South America, okay, there are people who speak a lot of English, obviously, but it's more helpful to have Spanish than it is to have the local language in South America. So that's one factor. Okay, in Buenos Aires, I'd say 45, an older guy. No, I think that's kind of a youthful person's city. I would start to investigate smaller cities if I was going to go to Argentina. But I don't think Argentina, if I was going to recommend somewhere in South America, because you want to go dating and you want to date somebody 10, 15 years later, I don't think it's the best place to go.
Even for Venezuelans?
Well, I mean, why not go to Colombia or Peru, where there's more Venezuelans, closer to Venezuela?
The quality of life in Peru's, quite a bit lower, and Colombia is really quite dangerous. I mean, the reality is that to live there.
I think Argentina and Chile are both significantly safer than, say, Colombia. I'm not too sure about Peru. What I hear about Lima is it's not a very attractive city to live in. Good thing about Buenos Aires, it's an attractive city to live in. Yeah. It's got nice weather. It's got nice architecture. It's pleasant to stroll around. If you got your head switched on, it's not too dangerous.
So Frank,
you can't earn any money.
Frank, I feel like you've got a very interesting story. You've given us part one of South America and China, but could you fill in the gaps? Like you've learned, I think, 3 languages. You've had, jobs and girlfriends, before you went back to New Zealand finally for the last time. Yeah. Can you just fill in the gaps a little bit?
Okay, sure. So what I've basically told you with my story is up to 2006.
Okay.
Okay, so late 2006, I went back to China. My friend had opened a business kind of doing corporate training, which is kind of a flash way to sell, say, teaching English, but to companies. When I went back up there, that was in Shanghai. We had kind of a nice office in the German center, and we sold kind of training packages to eBay and Coca-Cola. He had these great plans. So that was more, I thought that job might kind of lead somewhere. So actually, no, I'm missing something. Yeah, no, that's correct. So then I was back in China, and I was in Shanghai for another year and a bit. But that job, when 2008 hit, that job we stopped getting contracts and so on. I had a few disagreements with my boss, who's still kind of a friend today, the Canadian guy. So I gave up in China again and came back to New Zealand. At that stage, I came back to New Zealand. I actually found a good flat to live in with, I was about 29 then, with some English people, and they were kind of hard drinkers. So we kind of had some fun. And I was just teaching English here in New Zealand. So basically, by that stage, I would have I had a New Zealand girlfriend when I was at university for about a year. But by that stage, it just felt like we used to go to the bar a lot, but we just never could meet local girls here in New Zealand. By that stage, I was kind of just, I would try and date Asian girls or South American girls.
But, let me summarize a little bit. From what I know of you, you've lived in Taiwan, You've lived in several parts of China. You've been to Brazil. You've been to Colombia. You speak very fluent Spanish. You speak quite good Chinese. You also speak some Indonesian. You've had, you had a lot of girls who liked you. You had like in many of these places, you had friends, you had fun, and you have nostalgia for China. And I think you finally decided to go back to New Zealand and pursue your career. And it worked out well because you finally got into, you're working, am I correct, for a South American embassy in your own country. So you're on a good career track, even though you've had all this time away from your own country. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. So I then went on to spend like a year and a half in Indonesia. I went back to South America and I spent another 2 years in Argentina. I went back to China a couple of times just for short trips. So once I went back that next time to South America, I really got my Spanish up to a high level. I continued studying Chinese. Indonesia was a fun place to live. I was in Taiwan for about 6 months. That didn't really work out for me. So I finally got back to New Zealand kind of for good around about first time kind of age 36.
Okay.
And I worked in the post office. Then I trained to be a high school teacher. But I think I was still unhappy until I got my current job, working in an embassy.
Okay.
So, it took a long time
you ended up successful, even, in spite of being away so long, you end up successful and you're still growing. Now, what about your dating life in New Zealand? Can you say anything about that? Was it difficult after it was so easy for you in other places?
When I was working in the post office, I mean, I never met any woman. I would have no real clue how to go out and meet women or anything. I wasn't really into doing Tinder, so there was no dating life. I think, what you describe of those guys in America who are kind of lonely and don't know any women. That was also living in a third tier city in New Zealand. So when I finally got to the capital here in Wellington, I would go to kind of language exchanges and I would look to, date foreign women, mainly sort of if they were Asian or South American. I'd be open to European as well. That was the only outlet or possibility I could see. And, thankfully I met somebody through doing that. And it also felt like, I was 40 by that stage. It was kind of, in some ways, a last chance. If I was single again now, I'd probably just go back to Asia.
If I remember right, you went to these places that had foreigners and you had certain girls young girls were attracted to you and you finally ended up meeting the right one for you. And you're happy now with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
And would you say that, 40 was like the cutoff to do that? If you'd waited another few years, could you do that today or would it be too late, you think?
I would say it would be kind of difficult. Like the girls who go to those places were 10 or more years younger than me. And at that stage, I still had quite a lot of my hair and I looked quite young. It kind of felt like last chance saloon to some.
Well, good job. I mean, I think your story is one of the very positive stories on Winston's forum. And I'm sorry, Winston, I'm sure you have questions and I haven't let you say anything. So please, what do you have to say so far, Winston, or what questions do you have?
Well, I don't have any questions about what you're talking about now, but earlier when you were talking about Argentina, you said it's okay. I mean, you recommended it as a good place for me, and I think you told me before that the women are open to like flirtation in Argentina, and the men like to talk about philosophy and stuff. So you get some intellectual stimulation, and some flirtation. Even if you didn't find a girlfriend, it'd still be fun, right?
Yeah, compared with New Zealand and Australia, which I know well, the people are much more intellectual. I mean, people in New Zealand and Australia can be kind of proud of saying they never read a book. I mean, just the history of New Zealand and Australia, it's very practical skills are held in high esteem, like builders, plumbers, they earn a lot of money. Of course, it's the opposite in Argentina. So, people like to talk about intellectual stuff. It's got a good intellectual kind of tradition, and people are not, they don't mind entering into conversations. the woman might seem like you're getting somewhere at first, but I know a lot of guys go there and get frustrated that the woman lead them on, but it's never going anywhere. The women don't really seem to be interested in taking something to a different level.
Oh, yeah, but that's true anywhere. I mean, most people you meet are not going to be your close friends. They're just going to be superficial.
No, I mean, what he's saying, Winston, is that the girls there kind of like to tease guys versus, maybe in some countries, if they show interest, they really are interested. I think that's what you're saying, right, Frank?
Yeah, they're the kind of, they'll set you up and not turn up for a date.
Flaky.
And they'll seem interested. Yeah, they'll play games. And
okay.
Yeah, but it depends on how much they really like you, too. I mean, not all guys are the same. Some guys are more likable, and some guys are more charming, and some guys.
But you remember, Winston,
obviously,
even Roosh, when he wrote his book, Dead Bad in Paraguay, he talked about how much more difficult women were at the end of the day than versus, say, Brazil, where Brazil was like the opposite of Argentina for him.
Yeah, he was much happier in Brazil. And in the end, when I was in Argentina, I had a Brazilian, the girl I had kind of the longest relationship with there was Brazilian as well. So I never had an Argentinian girlfriend. I had a Venezuelan girlfriend. Yeah.
What about feminism and wokeism? Is that an issue at all there in Argentina or Chile?
That out of the Latin American countries, I mean, the wokeism, it's not as bad as say in the West, but the feminism is definitely there. And that's an issue. That's an issue there, definitely. And the wokeism, it's not as widespread, but it's more, I'd say it's stronger there than say it be in Colombia.
Okay. What about Brazil? Or you don't know that much about Brazil, I guess, right?
I was in Brazil for about, I think about 5 months in total. Mm-hmm. I think it's only there in sort of certain circles in Sao Paulo or probably Rio. It's not widespread.
Okay. I'm sorry, Winston. Keep going.
Well, no, I was going to ask. I mean, if Brazil is better, why not recommend Brazil rather than Argentina or maybe Colombia too?
Sure. I mean, if we're getting down to where I would recommend, I would probably recommend, if you're just with a blank slate, I would probably recommend Brazil for the social scene over Argentina. I think a nice thing about Argentina is the culture is not too different from the West. So I appreciated that after China, that it was kind of similar to my own culture, not so different. I wasn't really ready to take on another culture really different. Yeah, but Brazil, I think things are much more exciting in Brazil. The food's better. People are friendly. The girls are hotter. And Colombia is another place that guys go. So if I was to recommend Argentina, I mean, I would recommend a smaller place. But yeah, probably Brazil. And I mean, it depends what you want to do. Do you want to work? Do you want to be a digital nomad? Do you just want to go on holiday?
One thing about Brazil, Winston, is that, it varies a lot. Like the southern part, south of Sao Paulo, is almost like a different world than, say, Rio or Salvador, especially when you get to the Amazon. They've got a lot of different options in Brazil, maybe more so than in Argentina.
Are you guys there? The connection froze again. Darn.
Urban, busy, gritty, a lot of drug addicts. The people during the day definitely weren't. It was one of those places we walk around during the day and you'd be surprised. Everyone was kind of ugly and the city was kind of not easy to manage. And you'd only see the hot girls who come out at night. So Brazil, like the cities, I know Rio's beautiful, but the downtowns in the city is kind of ghetto. So it really depends where you are. And up north, those places like Bahia, where it's more African culture, Bahia, that has a reputation as being pretty dangerous place. I think there's nice beaches up there, but I'm not sure I'd want to live there. Maybe.
I've heard that some people like living in the medium-sized cities in the far south, and they're a little bit maybe, in terms of the way people look, slightly more like Argentina.
Yeah, there's Porto Alegre, which is the nearest city to Argentina. That seemed, similar to Argentina. I think the other one's Florianopolis. A lot of people like living there. There's a beach. So there's a lot of German blood. There's a lot of blondes there. There's other quite big cities like Belo Horizonte. That's like a couple of million people. Curitiba, they're kind of near the south. There are other good medium-sized options. But the
Belo
nice thing,
Horizonte, I think, has a lot of it has a reputation for being full of gringo hunters. I don't know why, but
possibly,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if I was to go back, I would check those kind of places out.
Hmm.
I guess Rio's probably just over flooded with gringos at the moment.
Okay. I think your story is so interesting. That's why I keep going to your story and your impressions of these places, Frank. I
Yeah.
know there's other things you'd like to talk about. And, you mentioned things, lots of different topics. Is there, you've mentioned things like neuroscience, some of the esoteric topics that Winston likes. You've mentioned networking, why guys get into trouble overseas, the right job for you. Choose a topic. We want to hear more.
Okay. I would like to say, one of the places I might recommend guys to go, sorry, I'm going back to the same topic, would be Indonesia. Because I think China is, it's over. Like, that place changed a lot. But correct me if I'm wrong, but like the attitude towards foreigners in the Philippines hasn't changed too much over the last 20 years. I feel the same in Indonesia. You could probably go on there and have the same amount of fun that you did 20 years ago. Don't go to China anymore. Okay, well, I was going to say to Winston.
Frank, one thing in favor of China the Z-Boy, one of the guys from the foreign, he said that because of COVID and because of the bad attitude towards foreigners, the foreigners who are going there now are getting paid significantly more money to teach English. I mean, some of these salaries are in the first tier cities. You call maybe up to $4,000 a month with most of your expenses covered and low taxes. Just a side note I want to throw in there. Sometimes when a country becomes less friendly, there's a positive to that. So I just want to throw that in there.
Right.
Okay.
I guess why I put those other topics in, Winston, you often say that the USA is kind of set up for extroverts, right? And the socializing there really only suits extroverts. Would you agree that's something you've said in the past?
Well, I haven't said that, but other people have. I mean, I don't really believe in the introvert-extrovert thing because it's too binary.
I definitely I see where you're coming from. It's I think with all of us who are going to these happy abroad experiences, not everybody. Part of it is you want to get out and have an adventure, but part of it is it does come from a place of unhappiness from a lot of guys, right? So I think the whole happy abroad thing is kind of got to be more holistic. And I just kind of wanted to ask you about this, and not in a way that I'm disagreeing with you. Okay, so I noticed that sometimes you mentioned archons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Demons,
but that's something from Gnosticism, and if people aren't familiar with Gnosticism, they might not know what that is. I mean, you have to follow that stuff to know that.
Because I thought archons came from, I thought that was Scientology. I didn't know it was from Gnosticism.
Well, I'm sure Scientology has something similar. I mean, they have these theories about, parasites around us that are feeding off of us. It's not just Gnosticism, but a lot of religions do. Even Carlos Castaneda books talk about it too and stuff. So it's in a lot of different literature.
Well, that's what Scientology is really selling, is how to get rid of your archons. So, and amazing how much money they've made through doing that. But, you say your mood is everything, and then you can go overseas and it will change your mood, like the environment.
Oh, yeah. Location totally makes you feel like a different person. I mean, like in Russia, the Philippines, I feel like a completely different person than in America.
My experience is that's true, but eventually that runs out. So you go to a new country and you have that, but eventually you'll come back to the same problems you had before once the newness wears off. Yeah. And from books I've read and people I've talked to, I think that's kind of true. So I've been kind of trying to work on my mood lately and look at those, they talk about neuroscience and all these, dopamine and serotonin. there's a lot of things that science, doesn't, there's a lot of gaps in science. They talk about these dopamine and serotonin and do this, do that, but there's a lot of stuff they don't know. But at least they give some kind of practical advice of what you can do. I remember you had an experience, I hope this is okay to talk about it, that you went up to Sichuan to do some kind of cleansing in China.
Yeah.
I just think, for centuries, people have talked about demonic possession, so I'm not dismissing it. But I think if you've got demonic possession, I mean, what really, rather than you think it's something wrong with your chemicals, how can you solve? It's so hard to solve demonic possession.
Oh yeah, of course it's hard to solve. If it was easy to solve, the world would have be a paradise or a utopia. But I mean, there's different levels. I mean, some are just superficial, like entities attachments, and some are attached to your astral body or whatever, and some are part of your karmic past or something. But the thing is, as soon as you have a weakness, like you're addicted to alcohol or drugs, that opens a gateway for them to enter in and manipulate you. But I wouldn't use the word possessed. I mean, it's more like they manipulate you and latch onto you, like a parasite. But besides entities, there's also egregores. Like you talk about inner demons. Like if you can create a demon in your own mind that's like an egregore or a tulpa, and it functions just like an organism. I mean, you can look this up. Tulpa is TULPA, and also egregore. And in the 1970s, there was an experiment called Philip the Ghost, where a group of people actually created a ghost just by thinking about it and believing in it. So you can create entities just, with your consciousness too. So I think there's inner demons and outer demons, and also tulpas too, or egregores.
Okay. Okay, I've got a question on this. Okay, so say if you're unmotivated to travel or something, you might put that reason down to being some kind of demon, right? But then a scientist would say, for whatever reason, you're lacking in dopamine because your diet's wrong, you're not exercising or something. As far as you know, is there anybody? But then the scientists won't be able to explain everything about how the dopamine functions or something, and they'll say science has got a gap, but we will fill that gap will be filled in. Do you know anybody who's kind of got an approach where they talk about the demons or possession and kind of mix it up with the neuroscience? That would be interesting if somebody kind of, people are either scientific and everything else is dismissed, or they're into, demons and archons and all those things. It would be nice to have somebody who kind of had a good mix of those things.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know too many people personally that talk about these things, but there are people on YouTube that talk about them, and of course it's all connected. I mean, the dopamine is real, and it's connected, maybe to to something in the non-physical world. So it's all connected. But the thing is, you got to fight to stay positive, because if you're depressed or sad, it's going to lower your energy, and then you become more weak and easy to manipulate. So you have to find ways to keep positive. And this Gnostic author I've been watching on YouTube, his name is John Lamb Nash. He actually said something interesting. He said the key to not getting manipulated by the archons is to have a healthy sex life. Because if you have a healthy sex life, then your kundalini energy will be really strong. And once that happens, the archons or the demons or the parasites can't manipulate you once you have a good kind of kundalini energy. And I think that's true to a certain point, because in Angeles City, for example, where, I have sex regularly, I don't feel like I'm being manipulated by entities as much. I feel like I'm on a higher energy level. But like you said, Frank, I mean, it is true that if you stay in one place too long and you get settled, then all your problems come back once you get used to it. And I think that's why people like Rock like to move around a lot and go to different countries to keep fresh, so it doesn't get stale. And that might be part of why Rock, doesn't like to stay in one country for a long time.
Yeah, I think Ladislav said that, like, once you become a happier broad guy, you need all that balance. But that's not
Mm.
always possible. Um, yeah, so for me, like, it's the first time in my life I've had like a relationship which is going pretty well and a job which I don't hate. But still, like, just out of the blue, I'll get down. It doesn't seem to have any real bearing on my environment. Maybe it's just like I'm on board or something. Something I feel like as you get older, when I was young, I could kind of drink, or there was a lot of ways to blow off steam. As I get older, that kind of you 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 learn not to indulge in self-destructive behavior, like, whatever, you're going to go get drunk or take drugs or go to the brothel or something. But sometimes I feel like I miss it. I don't have those outlets anymore. So I
Well,
guess
Frank,
that's something I miss about the happier abroad life.
Frank, you've got to remember this, and I see this in expats who are, say, living in Thailand, for example, older expats.
Yeah,
What makes you happy? What, like, gives you your need for thrills or whatever? It changes your body, your hormones, your brain
Mhm.
chemistry. They're not the same at the age of, say, 45 versus 25. So it depends very much on the individual too, because I think as we get older, our problems become more unique. And there's
yeah,
always problems when you get older. Almost people have certain problems, um, body problems, thinking problems, emotional depression. And I think that you have to continue seeking what works for you, because what worked for you 10 years ago is going to be different now. I mean, if you went back to Asia and you did what you did when you were 30 years old, it would
yeah.
probably bring you down very fast. That amount of
I'm
drinking,
sure.
that amount of partying, that lack of sleep.
Yeah,
But from what I see, those guys who keep trying, some of them are happy in their 70s, for example. They look happy
right.
as a plant. They have the life they want. They spend a lot of time just chilling, maybe at a coffee shop. I hope, though, I'm talking about the ones who don't even drink, but even those. So I think that, we all have these romantic ideas about our past, but if we were to go
Yeah,
recreate them, they wouldn't work anymore.
yeah,
However, and I think we're always going to struggle. So now you've got a pretty good situation, with the job and the domestic situation. You're in a good place, but you're going to have to struggle. Your body's changing, your brain is changing. Sometimes you're going to feel down and you don't even know why you feel down. Or maybe, I don't know if you exercise, but that helps. It always helps, actually. You should do that your whole life. You do, right? You do exercise,
yeah. I do a lot of different exercises,
both
and that does
resistance and
help.
cardio.
Yeah, I do cardio, running, and I do lifting weights, and I try and do stuff for coordination, like kind of not martial arts as in taking somebody else on, but martial arts kind of like choreographed type kicking and punching, and
Oh,
also like some yoga. I mean, I wish,
yeah.
like, once you get to 40, you don't kind of care so much about what people think of you, but you can go to a yoga class. That would be something I would have found really hard to do as a
Mm.
younger guy. But the
Yoga's not
flexibility,
yoga's not easy, by the way. I mean,
no.
for some people, like me, for example. Now, do you feel you're very healthy?
Yeah, I have some kind of things going on with my health, like just aches and pains, which are kind of inexplicable and hard to get rid of. Um, I
Which
would say
yoga
my
can help.
mental health is, yeah, but yeah, generally in good health. Yeah.
And mentally?
Um, I think I have some kind of thing. My dad has always kind of struggled with depression, and I remember my 40th birthday. He said kind of sorry to me for passing it on. So I do think I have a tendency to just get low mood. And my partner has really just kind of figured out what it is after 4 years of being together, and she kind of realizes it's kind of a disease and so on. But she's such a happy person. It's been hard for her to understand. But it's interesting now. Of course, she's in the phase where she wants to fix it, and she's got these therapies. And you'd be interested, Winston. She's got these therapies where she says trauma comes from past generations. So she's trying to, these healing things, which, the trauma's passed down. So she kind of believes in the demons and the archons, as well as the neuroscience. I
Oh,
mean,
so she's a spiritual person too, but you mean like passed down in the genes or something like?
She said
ancestor
like trauma
memories.
gets passed down, and not necessarily she gets passed down in your body. And the trauma,
Oh, you mean
when she
karmically?
wants
You
my
mean?
karmically, she wants my parents to go to like these healing sessions
Yeah,
as
like
well.
that Bible verse where it says the sins of the fathers get passed down to the sins of the
Well,
of the sons or
yeah,
something.
she's not religious herself, but she works in a religious organization, and she said somebody told her today that was in the Bible. So, yeah, I mean, I need to keep working on it myself, but yeah, I think that kind of low mood thing is something which kind of it forced me to do the Happy Abroad. I was so bored in New Zealand, so there's a very positive side to it that it forced me to have that interesting life. I always wanted to go somewhere new, and I think it made me relatively creative as well. But it still affects me in terms of like socializing here in New Zealand and those kind of the people I see who are very successful in Western society, like I know the ambassador I work for, they don't have these social hang-ups that a lot of Happy Abroad guys do. They're just they have a lot of dopamine and good chemicals running around their brain all the time. And if
Frank,
you are naturally
Frank,
like that, I think your life is easy. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
Frank, I want to interrupt
Yeah,
you because you've given
sure.
me a very interesting perspective. Maybe those people who do suffer, they become deeper. And I want to talk about something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I want to talk about something you do that you haven't mentioned, because besides, having a professional job in the embassy, you're also an avid writer and book reviewer. You should tell us about that. Based on your,
well, yeah, I published a lot. Well, I guess something. I'm very into memoirs guys wrote about their time in China or even Indonesia. There's, there's not so many of those because I find that when I look at those guys that they might be from Canada or America, when they write their books, there's so much in those experiences which are familiar to me. So I started writing book reviews about some of these books because some of these books are really good, but nobody's really reviewed them. And, I get the odd likes and I get some feedback. So I kept going with that with the book reviews. At one stage, I kind of toyed with trying to make some money out of writing, and I sold a few articles. I think that's a hard way to make any money. So yeah, I've written over 100 book reviews, and
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of put me in touch with a lot of authors. I mean, you know that American Bum in China, that book. I mean,
Yeah,
I've talked to
fascinating
him.
book.
I've even talked to Rusha. I reviewed his book. I sent it to him, and I had a little bit of a conversation. So most authors, you can get in touch with these you put the effort in. Isham Cook, who's very interesting. Yeah. He's an anti-monogamy guy, and he talks a lot about basically the red light district and prostitution in China. I have a conversation with him quite a lot. So for me, that's been a way to really, the people who write these very interesting books, they're the people you most want to talk to, for me anyway. So that's kind of how I got into book reviews.
What about writing your own books?
Yeah, so I wrote a novel. It's kind of a crime story. I thought I had, when I got to Argentina, I knew a lot about China. So I thought and there was a lot of Chinese crime in Buenos Aires, where the small supermarkets are owned by Chinese. And then there's a mafia which goes around extorting them, getting a monthly payment off them. And, nobody was really writing about that. And all.
Oh, no, it froze.
Crime gangs. So, yeah, I just put a book together of that, quite a short book, talking about crime and just the history of Argentina. And, the book's been quite successful. I don't know how many people have read it now. Probably, maybe about 50. And I've got like over 20 reviews. So, yeah, it was quite a successful experience for me. And I've almost finished another book, which is, I think it'd be more of interest to Happy Abroad, which kind of compares my kind of dull life in the post office, but with a lot of Kiwi humor versus like the more exciting life in Indonesia. And just, so yeah, that'll be my next book. I just about finished it now.
Oh, wow. Wow. Do you put these on Amazon?
Yeah, so my book's on Amazon. It's called Buenos Aires Triad. And yeah, it's on there. And yeah, I've got a few sales. And I went on the radio here, the Spanish radio, station here and did an interview. Not really to promote the book, but that was part of it. So that was kind of a good.
You're on the radio there in New Zealand.
Yeah. So basically, my girlfriend works on. There's an hour a week Spanish radio program here in Wellington, and they interview people like either expats or New Zealanders who can speak Spanish. So I went on that program, and they interviewed me, and I talked about my time in Wuhan and China, because that was kind of new to them and my book. So
was that in Spanish?
Yeah, so that was in Spanish.
Wow.
So yeah, because although I started to learn Chinese first, and I took Chinese kind of seriously, basically now my Spanish is a lot better. It's kind of fluent. I work every day in Spanish, and I speak Spanish.
Look, I've seen you speak Spanish, and I've been exposed a lot to Spanish, so I know what's good and what's not. And for me, you seem native.
No, I mean, no, definitely I have an accent and makes mistakes, but it's definitely fluent. I got a good vocabulary. And so on. Yeah.
All right. Now, I just want to remind you guys, we're at 1 hour. I would love to talk more. I don't know if you two still have time or not.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually in a house in kind of an hour out of Wellington, looking after Mariana's sister's whatever. Her dog.
Yeah.
So I'm just like in a house by myself. So I'm good. We can cut it off. We don't have to keep going on the podcast.
Okay.
If you want, we can just chat.
Well, I have some other questions based on what you gave me for topics. What's the right job for you? What is that about?
Okay, so look, man, when I first started teaching high school back here in New Zealand, is dealing with those kids day in, day out who don't want to learn. And it was a boys' high school. No, it was at a co-ed high school. That wasn't easy either. And just resentful teenagers. I'm not sure why I went into it. I didn't like high school the first time around. I think like neither of you guys really like going to high school, right?
Right.
I didn't really enjoy it either. So now I'm in something where it's just more problem solving. I do deal with people and answer the phone. For me, like a job is something where you can send emails, prepare some documents, do useful stuff, but just not be in front of an audience. That was hard. That's why I think the teachers I've seen, I know I've talked a lot today, but teachers I've seen are just people who like the sound of their own voice and like it's not about, teaching is not about knowledge of your subject. It's about your ability to control a crowd and you're liking being up in front of the audience. So in terms of introvert, extrovert, I mean, that was the wrong job for me.
Right. What I think when it comes to career, ideally, and often I think these days it's very hard to achieve this because the way the whole job market is now. But ideally, you analyze yourself and you see what activities you like doing, what do you spend time naturally, and then find a job that gives you at least a good portion of that. Like me, I've always liked reading and analyzing, like in my own little bubble. And the career I had before was very much doing that same thing. So it fit me well for quite a while. But like I said, sometimes at the end of the day, you have to pay the bills. And what's available now in today's world with AI and with outsourcing and all the other things, automation, may not be what you want to do. But I think you're very fortunate because from what I understand, you're fairly happy in your job now. And there's advancement.
No, there's not. I don't think not in the job with itself. I mean, I think a problem with it is the pay is not great, and New Zealand's an expensive place to live. But in terms of, it's going to look good on the CV.
Absolutely.
And I don't suffer day to day. Quite look forward to going into work.
I mean, it's kind of like a government job, right?
Yeah. Well, it's for a government.
Yeah.
South
American that has a lot of. When you work for a government, you tend to be, comfortable, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. I get the idea with you, Rock, that your parents probably get. My parents were, they were focused on academics, but they were kind of not that clued on about money. So they always wanted me to do well at school, but it was never really a thought of what job I was going to do. So yeah, I guess your parents probably taught you some kind of financial literacy.
My dad.
When you were younger.
My dad. Yeah. My mom's not good at that stuff at all. So I have another question now that we're talking about your home country. For most of us, New Zealand is abroad, technically. And I want to know, how do you think it's different than UK, US, even Australia? Like, it's an Anglo place. Would it be interesting for certain people on Happier Abroad to actually go there and maybe they could have a good social life somehow, some way if they fit in? What can you say is different?
Are you talking about Happy Abroad in terms of Winston's site?
Yes, happy people and passport bros, even passport bros.
Well, I think in terms of there's lots of people around the world who want to come to New Zealand, but in terms of Winston's site and what those guys are looking for, not really. I mean, you have good nature here, but you've got that in the USA. In terms of, maybe the society is it's obviously more relaxed in the USA. There's probably not, there is a real racial thing, and there's a lot of wokeism, with the Maori, but the native people here. So there's racial issues here, but not as bad as the USA. There's not the gun crime. It's safe. Maybe society's more relaxed. There's a low population density. That's not what the guys on Happy Abroad are looking for, right?
Well, let me put it this way. Winston always praises Europe, even Western Europe, for how people are more intellectual, approachable. You can make friends on the spot. Is New Zealand like that, or is it more like America?
Okay, so I do deal with a lot of foreigners here, so I get their ideas. They say that New Zealand people are very polite, but they're not friendly. So they will be polite to you, but they're actually not friendly, and they're not very open. So most foreigners I know, like Latin Americans, they complain about that. So people are kind of closed in that British sense. Intellectual, well, New Zealand was kind of a place where people came from England to get away from the class system. So people are suspicious of people being intellectual here. It's not the kind of the ideals of this society are like the rugby player, tough guy, pioneer, very like a handyman, can do all the practical stuff himself. So we don't have good architecture here, really, because it's quite a new country. So that what Winston's talking about in Western Europe, France, Spain, Italy, no, not really. Okay. There's lots of good things here, but no.
Are there opportunities to date minorities like Maoris or Samoans or even Asians? A lot of Asians go there. Asians go there to study.
If you're kind of, I tend to think, there are quite a few Maori girls who are attractive. They might be kind of mixed, but they're more like your more kind of alpha, very masculine guy. So if you're that kind of guy, yes, there might be opportunities. Samoan women are in general not, they do stick kind of to their own society, and they're not so attractive, but not impossible. So if you go to Auckland, you notice when you go to Auckland, there's a lot of Asian people there, and there's a lot of white guys with Asian girlfriends. So as I imagine you would if you were in Vancouver, have that opportunity, or Sydney. Would you especially come down here for that? I'm not so sure.
Well, it's not cheap, right? It's not cheap to live down there.
No, it's very expensive down here. A lot of places in the world have got more expensive, but it's expensive down here, yeah.
So we probably have to cross New Zealand off the list, Winston. I'm sorry, Winston.
Not unless you want to stay in hostels and stuff, and or use couch surfing and stuff. Hey, Frank, could you compare and contrast Australian people with New Zealand people and the culture?
I can. So New Zealand's a place where, for me, conversation doesn't flow so much, and people are more worried. This predates wokeism. People are more worried to step out of line. People are quite more quiet and unassuming, whereas Australians are quite brash, and they'll say what they think. And when I first went to Australia, I thought they were quite rude. So the disadvantage of that is that, like, the Australians, they're always kind of swearing and they're kind of brash. But I find them also they're funnier, and they're less afraid. They're not so afraid to say something which might not be politically correct. So there's that difference.
Are the people friendlier in Australia and more open, or?
Yeah, but people in Australia can be more. Yeah, they might be more open, but they can be ruder. People here are not in general rude.
Oh, it's kind of like
They're
New
polite.
York, like more blunt and.
Yeah, they're more blunt, but you might have more chance to have. Last time I went to Australia, I found like I talked to more strangers there. That might have just been because I was on holiday, but I just feel that people are more. People in New Zealand are very, because there's not many people. I think they're used to having their personal space, and they're not very outgoing. Yeah, and there's kind of a lot of unwritten rules, and people don't like to. If you bring up some strange conversation topic here, I don't think they'll like it so much. Yeah, it's more open in Australia. Let's put it that way.
I think, Winston, I don't know about you, but I would prefer the vibe in Australia, I think, because I like people being real and honest, even if they're rude.
Better weather as well.
Well, depending on where you go, but yeah. I have another question, Frank, and it's a general question. I want you to synthesize all of your experience and information and imagine yourself. You've just graduated from university with a mediocre degree in business or something, and you don't want to stay in your country. You want to explore. Where would you go and why, and what would you do? 2023.
Okay. I mean, ideally, I would have some kind of digital nomad way of earning money, right?
Let's just say you were able to earn about $1,000 a month.
Okay.
1,000 to 1.5. Let's say 1.5.
1,000 to 1.5. I think I might. It depends what kind of. I might go to Thailand initially, but I might not. I don't think I would stay in Bangkok or Pattaya. I think I would probably maybe go to a smaller city there, or I might go to Vietnam. I have been to Vietnam before. I might look at those, but I think I would have a plan to maybe go to South America as well. I like the balance of having those two different continents. So I would look at, maybe if I had my time over again, I wouldn't go to Argentina. I would go to Colombia. And if I had my time over again, maybe I wouldn't spend so much time in Indonesia. Vietnam seems like an attractive location right now in terms of maybe dating, maybe the weather, maybe the price. The culture is kind of interesting, but do you want to learn Vietnamese? So I might plan to do 2 years in Southeast Asia and then 2 years in Colombia. That's how I'd approach it. Yeah.
And, if you had to, I know that it's hard to generalize because every country has a wide, degree of individual, you can find all kinds of people in every country, but which country do you think has the most suitable girls in general for Anglo males who are maybe not so, like they're not the top tier in their own countries?
Right. Well, I think in Asia, from what I see, guys can get into relationships there, but often they don't know what they're getting themselves in for, just in terms of the family and what comes next. Countless guys I've seen. Yeah. Are you there? Your internet just faded a little bit.
I'm sorry. The connection got kind of cut. So maybe we can just start. Yeah.
Okay. I would say in Asia, guys can go there. They can get into relationships, but what's going down the line might not be what they're expecting. Whereas you go to South America, it might be a little bit harder. You might kind of have to be, go over there in better shape or whatever. But once you get a girlfriend, the next steps are maybe not so unexpected. Do you know what I mean in terms of?
Yeah, I think you guys
Asian girls
have
a long-term plan for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe you do want a long-term plan, but like say if you were going to date
Well, as
Chinese
long as
women,
it's a benevolent
Indonesian
one.
women, Filipino.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm saying like within Asia, are there any girls you would avoid? Any nationalities you would avoid?
I don't know if I would avoid Taiwanese girls, but they're probably the ones who are hardest to get to know. I mean, I think Winston does have a point where Taiwanese are the kind of the coldest in my experience.
Yeah, they have the
And I think
shell, kind of, yeah.
that's a recent thing. Because I know about your experience, Rock.
Further
I
back,
think,
yes.
yeah, I think from the stories I hear about Thai girls, I think there's a real dark edge there in Thai society. So I would be cautious there. From what I saw in Indonesia, I mean, I don't think the girls are particularly scheming and dangerous there. So, I mean, caution. I think if I was going to go to Thailand, I would have extreme caution. And I think if I was going to go to Taiwan, I just wouldn't have any success. So, I mean, that's two recommendations there.
What about China, Japan, and Korea?
Well, China, I mean, I think it's easy to meet a girl. I think the culture is so different. I've seen a lot of guys that met a girl and they really just didn't know what that girl was about. And she might have a long-term plan for him to kind of go to America, get her green card, and divorce him. I saw that story back in the day. It happened to a lot of guys. I don't think that happens so much anymore. A lot of guys seem to go through issues with their parents-in-law there. But in China, I mean, there seems to be a lot of guys go over there, get into a relationship and seem happy. And it seems to be...
The forum who got married there, but...
it's one of those places where you think maybe Chinese women won't be open. But I think they're very open. And I think Chinese are more kind of open about sex and than Westerners, have a less complex attitude to it in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Japan, I mean, I don't hear great things about Japan in terms of going over there. I just hear the people are not very interactive. And Korea, I hear there's a slight, anti-foreigner thing. I think the time to go to Korea might have gone by. I mean, there's a lot of kind of attractive girls in Korea, but they seem to be strongly nationalistic and kind of insecure about it. Maybe that's something to do with being a mid power, a medium-sized power, and also the history with the divided country and so on. So most of the story, I hear a lot of horror stories about Korea. So I don't know about you.
Oh, I don't hear as much about Korea per se, but what are your what are your thoughts on the Philippines?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to the Philippines. Let's put that out there straight away. But I've watched a lot of videos just from curiosity. I've seen guys who look kind of very old and very unattractive. Get girls who look kind of really young, like still under 25 and relatively attractive. I don't think so. I don't think the Philippine girls I've seen in all these videos, I really just don't think they're anywhere near as attractive as girls from Thailand. They seem quite sweet, but they seem to maybe seem kind of easygoing. I don't know. I didn't find their personalities that interesting, but yeah, I mean, Philippines seems to cater for everybody.
Okay.
What about Indonesia? I mean,
well, he already said Indonesia's pretty good.
Oh, I mean, are Indonesian girls more attractive than Filipinos or Thais? Or
I'd say there's a few. I mean, the average in Indonesia is not that great, but there are kind of a few attractive ones. Something which is interesting in Indonesia, I taught a lot of, the Chinese there have got money. So a lot of my students were Indonesian Chinese, and they're actually Christians. But a lot of those Indonesian Chinese girls stay virgins until they get married. But the Muslim, the Malay race, if you will, the native Indonesians who are Muslims, they're much more kind of open and ready to, have sex or whatever. I think that the Southeast Asian people are much more sensual people than the Northeast Asian people in some ways. So I'd say Indonesia, caters to a lot of, it can definitely cater to guys, but you don't have the same familiarity with the language as you have in the Philippines there.
Well, you know
And
what,
also,
Frank?
Islam's a factor. By the way, they just passed a law in Indonesia where it's illegal to have sex out of wedlock. So I don't know if that's going to now.
Really?
It's like anywhere in Southeast Asia, whether they really enforce the law. But that's going to cause some problems. I mean,
what about in Bali and stuff?
Prostitution is illegal in Thailand.
Good question. Yeah.
Prostitution. Frank, I've got a question though. Me personally, the only Indonesians I've known are Indonesian Chinese. Now, are the girls you're talking about? They're Muslim girls, right? You're not talking about the because there's a significant Chinese population there in Indonesia, but they're not really like Chinese. They're different.
No, they don't. I think Chinese language got banned from about the 60s to the 90s. Not that they really, they came to Indonesia in the 18th and 19th century. So they speak Indonesian as their native language. They'll tend to speak better English because they've got more money. They really have a lot of the money there in Indonesia. And they do keep themselves apart from other Indonesians. So, but a lot of, some guys I've known, two good friends from England married Chinese Indonesian girls, and they can be a good match because, they've got a high level of English. Socioeconomically, they're in a good place. So, that's one way guys go. And then there's the Muslim girls, but those Chinese Indonesian girls kind of tend to be kind of good girls. You know what I mean? More relationship material and just going out and they're not pay for play girls, and they're different.
Understood.
They're upper middle class, at least.
Okay, Winston.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, is Bali just for American women, or do American men like it too? I mean, what does it all have to offer?
Okay, really good question. I've been there. Okay, so I think one of the attractions is Bali's Hindu, so it's not Muslim. That's always been the attraction in the past. So it seems to be
that's
more
why New Age people like it then. Huh?
New Age people like it. They've got nice-looking temples there. It's become very overcrowded, and it's a tiny island. There's 4 million people on there, but it's pretty cheap, and it's a fun place to go party. It's there's a lot of Australians there, but Bali is traditionally kind of like the Angeles city of Indonesia. But most of the girls who are working in the pay-for-play scene are not the Balinese Hindus. They're girls who come from poorer backgrounds from Java. Java's not a very big island. It's got 150 million people on it. So, they're the girls. If you're going to get a massage or, do some pay-for-play or even do some dating of a girl who works in a mall in Bali, she's not going to be Balinese. She's going to be a Muslim from Java or maybe Lombok. But the attraction over there is the partying, the beaches. A lot of Western women go for the yoga classes and the spirituality. So those are the
true that
attractions.
Japanese girls go there, and maybe even some Western women to meet the boys.
They've got those Bali beach bum guys who hang out and they teach surfing and so on. And I've seen that over there. Like Western women hang out with those guys as well. Bali's one of the few places I looked on Tinder, and what I saw on Tinder, Tinder there was full of European or Australian or American yoga teachers, or Javanese prostitutes. That seems like the dating scene there, or the Tinder scene there in Bali.
Did you say there was 150 million people in Java? I mean, that's a lot.
On Java. Okay, so
that's half the size of America.
Well,
hang on, Java is a huge
country. I think
Java
it's the largest in the world.
Oh, really? I thought Indonesia was small. I mean, you hardly ever hear about it.
Well, yeah, you're right, Winston. It's not landmass, and it's not really in the news much. Okay, so Java is the 13th biggest island in the world, and it's got 150 million people. The South Island here in New Zealand is marginally smaller, and it's got 1 million people. So 150 million people on that island's a lot.
Java must be a dating paradise there.
Well, I would say so, yeah. Although
with 150 million people, geez.
I think the people there aren't naturally are naturally quite friendly, but there are sort of hardcore Muslim influences there. But yeah, definitely Java's a dating paradise, and Jakarta is a well-known place that guys go, say similar to Bangkok or Angeles City.
Okay, so the Muslim there, I mean the Islam there isn't the same as the Middle East. It's more
No,
liberal and
not
more
at all.
loose. Yeah, not as strict.
A lot of the girls, a lot of the girls walk around without the jilbab, the headscarf. No, and people drink, and there's there's nightclubs, and no, it's not strict at all.
Wow, I mean, geez, Rock. I mean,
the problem you've got
sounds like another whole haven to go to.
The problem about Jakarta is it's a bit like Manila. I mean, it's one of those cities where it's very overcrowded and there's no good transport system. So you have to kind of be patient to get from place to place.
I visited Jakarta a few years ago, Winston, and yeah, I mean, if you want to go from the north to the south, it's like a half a day project. So the strategy in Jakarta, if you want to see it, is like to spend time in going from south to north or north to south and spending days in one region. Don't think about bouncing around like you might do in Bangkok or something. It's not really doable there.
Another thing about Indonesia and Jakarta, I think there's a slight anti-Chinese feeling, which came from the Chinese kind of monopolizing, having a kind of a hold on the economy, having the big businesses. They were kind of favored by the dictator Suharto up until about 98. And when he was overthrown, people actually went around and started to kill the Indonesian Chinese. So I feel there's a slight anti-Chinese feeling there. I mean, that might come into... I had a British Chinese friend there. I don't know if he really experienced it too much, but I don't know if that would make it influence the dating scene for you down there.
Well, I can always say I'm Korean or Japanese, right?
No. You know what? If I was Winston, I would go for the Chinese Indonesians.
Yeah, but they're kind of that could be okay. But remember, they're kind of more the snobby girls.
Oh,
yeah. Lighter skin is usually more snobby.
Yeah.
You know what?
But they look really cute there.
It's been so long since 1998. It's another generation now. I suspect it wouldn't be too bad in general.
No, I don't think
Jakarta,
so.
Winston would be welcome, and a lot of people would like him. And, they understand he's not Indonesian, too. They can tell by looking, right?
Right.
I mean,
I think it would be a good place to go. Okay, Rockwell, here's a question for you. What would be the advantage of going out and hanging out in Jakarta for Winston over going and hanging out in Manila?
Okay, let me think about that.
Better food, maybe.
Well, yeah, better food. I mean, Manila's infrastructure-wise is actually worse than Jakarta. Not that Jakarta is very good. I would say Metro Manila would still be better than Jakarta. I mean, first of all, Chinese people here or Asian-looking people are considered attractive. Like,
right.
Because there's the Korean thing, but then also the Chinese guys, some of them actually do pretty good here if they want to date the locals. I don't know, but I don't think there's that bias, first of all. And secondly, I think Filipinas are probably marginally less particular than women in Indonesia, if we're talking about Jakarta versus Manila, less sensitive about age gaps from what I've gathered. We used to have a poster named Falcon who talked a lot about Indonesia. I learned some things from him.
Yeah.
But I think that when it comes to pay for play, Jakarta is much, much better than Manila because it's in your face everywhere. Like every area has it all over the place. And Asian guys like they love to go there for that. Whereas Manila,
Jakarta, they have these big hotels where you've got it's kind of a one-stop place for pay for play. You got your massage, you've got your your prostitutes, you've got everything, the sauna, all in huge entertainment things there in Jakarta. So
it's
kind of known.
It's almost like Bangkok.
Yeah. So do they have soapy massage too, like in Bangkok?
Yeah, they have that. They have pretty much everything, Winston. And
they have everything, but they don't necessarily have those kind of bars. They don't have soy carbo or nano. It's a little bit more low key.
nothing compares with Thailand, but I would say it's a runner-up. And Manila actually, I think it sucks for that. I don't think Manila has, the pay for play here isn't really that interesting. Maybe if you go online, but I'm just saying in general from what I see, it might have been great 20 years ago, but people think it's good for that. But I think it's better for dating. I think it's better for meeting girls and having, a connection that way. I know Angeles City, maybe it's supposed to be good, but everyone says Angeles City is a lot worse now than it used to be. And no, I don't think, if you want to do that, if that's your thing, or if that's the way you connect with girls, and Winston, I think sometimes you use that as a bridge. Indonesia might be better, but I don't know because I haven't experienced it myself.
I felt like if you do pay for play in Indonesia, it's pretty safe. I always thought China was kind of a good place for pay for play.
It used to
back
be.
Back in the day. It used to be.
Back in the
Let's compare that quickly with South America. I mean, I never really did pay for play there. I mean, I went to a few clubs where there were like freelancer girls, or a guy took me to a brothel and I just left. I always found it scary and spooky. Like the girls looked like they were on drugs, and I wouldn't want to be involved in that scene in South America. It's illegal there as well.
Well, no, not in Brazil. Not in Brazil.
Is it not? But Argentina, Chile. I mean, it just kind of. No.
Brazil's look. I mean, I haven't been to Brazil in a long time, but I read a lot about it, and it's got now a lot going on, especially online. And the girls there are pretty. They're naturally active. They've got it in their blood, a lot of them, and they're very attractive. So that can be a good place if you're online savvy.
Yeah, Rock, you kind of cut out.
Or Angeles City of South America. Look no further than Colombia. Okay. Look no further than Colombia. And by the way, Colombia, I'm not safe, but it's in your face. Now, I know you guys didn't hear what I said, but I'm recording it, so it was on the recording.
Okay. Rock, they've got those interviews those videos online where a guy goes walking around the downtown areas of Medellin and Bogota, the red light district, and he sort of shows the girls standing in the doorways. I mean, that to me, that looks pretty. That looks dangerous.
No, you're talking about Santa Fe in Bogota, and maybe El Centro in Medellin. Those are not. That's just like a tiny speck of what's available, because most of the gringos I see in El Poblado and Medellin.
Sorry, the dogs.
That's not my dog. That's your dog. What I'm saying is they have like. It's okay.
Bro, the dog wants to participate in the podcast.
On the video. Let's see the dog. What kind of dog you got there?
It's Jack Russell.
That's so cute.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey,
wow, Trixie, that's so cute. Wow.
Trixie, come here. I'm going to show.
Maybe you can have both your dogs look at each other and stuff.
Wait, yeah. Trixie.
Yeah, they're one of them.
I'm the only one that doesn't have one.
Nala.
Trixie, look.
Look, they can make friends, huh?
It doesn't like. Look.
Doesn't like.
No, she's barking at something which is outside.
Maybe they can mate or make friends.
She's kind of heavy, so. Okay, going back to what I was going to say. I've met even wealthy guys in Medellin. They recreate the rap star lifestyle. They'll have, they're by the pool. They're not paying much, and they're getting there's just a lot of options in Medellin. And
but is this recent, or is this a few years back?
No, it's even post COVID. Like Andrew's there right now, and I bet Andrew will back this up.
Okay,
he's a guy from the forum. I forgot his forum name, but. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys, trust me, 9 out of 10 guys from America or who go down there, they may say they're doing something else, but, they're doing that because honestly, the dating opportunities there suck. You really have to live there a long time to start having regular dating in Colombia. Brazil would be much better. So, you can have that party lifestyle in Medellin or even in Bogota. Actually, Bogota's better because it's a lot more middle class, upper middle class.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going to do that, I would choose Bogota. If I wanted to actually date in Colombia, I would go and stay there for a year in the north part of Bogota. That's the most normal people. In Medellin I think it's pretty much messed up. Everyone there you associate with is going to want something from you, I think. And I've seen guys talk about this. There's a Chinese guy, a Chinese American, who said he spent a couple of years there, and he ended up going to a smaller town a couple hours away, and he met his wife there. And he said everybody there is nice and looks after him, but in Medellin, he just got used and used and used. They're very good at manipulation in general. Medellin kind of attracts that, kind of like Shanghai attracts a lot of like people who want money and want to use people, I think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing I do like about Argentina is as a foreigner, you really don't get treated that differently there. Where, Colombians, they've got, I don't know, I always kind of sometimes get a weird vibe off them. I mean, they'll contact you and then they'll not contact you for like 6 months and then they're a little bit more flaky and they've got that reputation. So, but it sounds like that's kind of at its worst in Medellin.
Yeah, Medellin, like you don't go to like El Centro because that's by the super dangerous at night. You can go to other areas. There's all kinds of options there. I mean, everything, casas, online, parks, clubs, all kinds of things. And the guys who come from America, no matter what they tell you, if they're going alone, they're not going with their girlfriend. They're going for monkey business. They're going for.
Sure. Why not? Well, like the thing is, say if I stayed in New Zealand, I mean, I probably would have never gone near pay for play. It's guys not that common here, even though it's legal. But in Asia, it's just everywhere. I mean, I think it's just that's something Isham Cook talks about. People don't have any clue just how ubiquitous prostitution is in Asian society. Prostitution is not something that the sex tourists brought to Thailand. It was their real big thing in their society. I found when I was in South America, just in a daily life, it wasn't as in my face as it is, as it was in Asia. So that's a fact. I think a lot of guys who had never considered doing pay for play in their lives before kind of ended up doing it in Asia just because it's everywhere.
It's in their face. Yeah. Even Cambodia, if you go to Phnom Penh, there's an area there, or a couple areas where it's in your face, even though Cambodia is extremely conservative, reserved culture. Most people there are very, there's a lot of virgins. People there live a simple lifestyle, much more conservative than Thailand. Night and day difference. But they still have a big, section for that stuff, the naughty life or whatever.
Right.
However, one more thing, Frank. I read a book about Australia, and I think in the 80s and 90s, the cities there had really great options for that. Is that true?
Okay, well, you reminded me of something. There was a guy I knew in Shanghai called Pat, and this was when I was 24, and he was already nearly 60. And he told me, in King's Cross in Sydney, they had beautiful girls.
Yeah.
Great options back in, I guess he was talking maybe about the 70s. He told me it was.
I heard that
it was great.
Up through the 90s almost, or the early 90s.
Yeah,
and then it
not there today.
Really fast. What?
It's not there today, I don't think.
Well, it would be a shadow. You crack girls, lady boys, all that stuff.
Okay. I have a question I want to ask to Winston. Winston, when you go to Philippines, kind of Angeles City is your go-to. A lot of guys go to Dumaguete and wherever. Is it Cebu? Do you have any?
Hello?
Winston?
Hello?
Did you hear that, Winston?
Yeah. No, I didn't hear it.
Did you hear the question?
After you said Dumaguete, what? I mean, it cut off for a while.
Okay, so I just asked, Angeles City is kind of your go-to in the Philippines, but are you interested in maybe Dumaguete or living in Manila or Cebu? And if not, why not?
Well, not Manila. I mean, it's way too crowded and congested there, and it takes a long time to get it anywhere. Yeah, I don't think anyone really wants to live in Manila except for Makati.
Okay, never mind Manila. What about Dumaguete?
Yeah,
what about
well, I've never been there. I've always wanted to go, but every time I'm in Angeles City, I have all these dates and things to do that I just get bogged down, and then I don't, you know, have time to go anywhere. I mean, it's just,
At
I
least
don't
it's
know.
not the
It's,
icons.
Winston, you've
yeah,
been
the
there
other
for
ones in Angeles City. I mean, once you're there, it's like a adult Disneyland, and you're distracted by all these girls and sights, But I heard that Angeles is only half open. Only half the bars are open now, and they're mostly owned by Koreans or something. So it's not even that fun anymore. But I still know a lot of girls there and have friends that hang out there. But once you're there
Mhm.
and you feel so satisfied, you just don't want to go anywhere. But yeah, I do want to go to Dumaguete and see, another place. It's supposed to be nice and quiet and maybe
there's a
someday
beach,
Rock
there's a boardwalk,
could go
not a
with me
beach,
too.
boardwalk.
The
It's
Winston,
doing
boardwalk.
getting more kind of just meeting other expats and just hanging out in cafes.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
think
looks
Kind of what
really
it's like.
nice from what I've seen.
Dumaguete is you can pretty much walk everywhere, or you take tricycles, so the traffic's much better. You can go out in the middle of the night; it's safe, and there's a couple of like discos that are fun to go to. It's not you're not going to find much of any pay for play there, but
uh
you're going to be able to meet a lot of interesting people there.
Yeah, and I'm
Expats.
Yeah.
sure even if there's no official pay for play, I'm sure there's always freelancers here and there too.
I don't
But
know about that, but here's the thing. Also, a lot of tourists, like Asian tourists and people from all over the world, go there for for a few days. So you see a lot of people going through there, and then you see the old expats there, and then the locals are super chill. It's known as the
mhm,
city of gentle people, and there's a difference. The vibe is really, really laid back, Winston,
mhm.
and you can pretty much do whatever you want as long as you don't do bad things or you don't disturb people. You just feel totally safe there.
What do you do for fun there? I mean, do you
Well,
sing videoke or go to the
no, I
mall or
mean,
what?
what I would recommend is if you like, either you get to know some expats there, or maybe you even get to know girls there online or something. One of those two, to kind of somebody to like be with you, or else you go with a friend, like you go with somebody, either a girl or another expat, and then you can have a great time there, I think.
Yeah, and
Okay.
let's not forget that happy abroad's not just about meeting girls. For me, like you kind of make connections with other guys who can talk about anything, which is, I've got old friends here in New Zealand, but I can't just kind of call them on the phone and talk about everything. It's like you, Winston, when you talk about your taboo topics. You do happy abroad's about kind of finding other guys you escape
Uh,
from the
Is that your mom?
tab. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. They're going to Costco or something. Chinese
okay,
people like going to Costco to get stuff
yeah,
in bulk for some reason,
Yeah,
or
right, yeah.
Taiwanese actually. Yeah. By the way,
So
if I
anyway,
said I forgot to ask, if I say that I'm Taiwanese, I'm not going to be lumped with the other Chinese, right? In Indonesia or
where?
where?
whatever.
Or Indonesia?
Well, I mean, yeah, you probably will be.
You'll still be lumped in with the other Chinese.
Yeah,
What were you saying
I'm just trying
about
to say that
Dumaguete? Okay.
maybe it's a good place to make those kind of connections with other expats. You can have
Oh
freewheeling
yeah,
conversations.
And you
yeah.
could
I
do
mean, I
your
I
interview
remember
there.
Mark said that in Dumaguete the expats talk to each other freely. There's no ice wall like in Western countries. There's not. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, you can talk to anyone. They're very open, and there's no awkwardness about talking to strangers.
I would say
Hmm.
that it's easier to talk to expats down there than it would be in Angeles City or Manila.
Yeah, the
Yeah, maybe.
expats in Angeles can be kind of cliquish. But of
Well,
course,
maybe they're on their
I
guard
still
because they're
know
up to no
some
good.
of them too because if you stay there a long time, eventually you talk to people. But yeah, the expats can be cliquish in Angeles City or Manila.
Have you guys seen any of these vlogs from Pattaya where a guy goes walking down? I think it's Soy Bacau, and then somebody runs out of the bar and basically just punches them because they're so angry that they're maybe filming them.
I saw that. That's one. I saw that. I saw that. And the guy was
There's
crazy.
several.
He's just stupid old guy. British,
Yeah.
Brit on Brit, I think it was. Some of those lager louts are such crazies, but I don't see that when I'm in Pattaya. There's another guy called Everything Pattaya who'll basically
Hmm.
tell you everything you need to know about it. He does a lot of cost of living videos, condo videos, fun videos. I mean, he's kind of like the expert on Pattaya, and it's called Everything Pattaya. I don't know him personally, but I appreciate his channel, and he claims, and he's shown it, he's proved it, that you can live there for well under $1,000 a month if you make certain compromises, and $1,500 a month is a good life there.
Yeah,
sounds like condo.
Yeah, there's a scene away from that central Pattaya with the walking street and so on, which sounds kind of better.
Pattaya, the whole Pattaya, greater Pattaya area, including Jomtien, is slowly being gentrified. And I mean, there's, you've got the old stuff there, but you've also got, for example, the most luxurious mall I've ever seen in Asia is Icon Siam in Bangkok along the river. They're going to build one of those in Jomtien, near Jomtien. They're going to build that. They've already done Terminal 21. They've done, there's another mall, and there's a Hilton. There's some high class infrastructure being built there, and it continues. The beach has been improved dramatically. The beach used to suck. Now it's really nice, actually. So, I mean, now, believe it or not, a lot of Chinese and even May, she's interested in maybe in retiring there, Winston.
Oh, yeah, she told me that too. She's looking at retiring in either Thailand or Taiwan. I mean, they're both good places for a woman to retire.
Well, yeah, they're very different, but yeah, it's much cheaper actually in a place like Pattaya or even Chiang Mai in the north.
Oh, yeah, of course, Thailand is cheaper than Taiwan even, but I mean, Taiwan seems a lot cheaper than if you compare it to the U.S., for example.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely, especially for things that involve humans.
And probably cheaper than New Zealand, too, I mean.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure it is based on what Frank said. So, I mean, this whole happier abroad topic / passport bros is like a new iteration on Winston's happier abroad.
I haven't caught up with it, really.
Soon. What?
I haven't caught up with passport bros, really.
Oh, well,
yeah, I just found out about them. I think there are a bunch of black guys that are going abroad for dating.
Well, it's not just black guys anymore.
Oh, okay, so we're kind of like passport bros too, right? I mean, me.
Oh, you're old school passport bro, you guys.
But passport bros are it's a very American concept. That's that idea that maybe you don't have a passport, so you get a passport.
Yeah. But what it really is. I'll tell you what I think what the core is. The core is guys are getting so sick of American women, like starting with black guys against black American women. There's a lot of women putting up videos that are criticizing the passport bros movement. They feel threatened. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's basically saying, just say no to these women and go abroad. And it's getting a lot of steam online anyway. So I don't have stats on it, but I know that I'm seeing video after video these days. And that Filipina P, that vlogger from the Philippines, she talks a lot about it. In fact, she's got enemies from the feminists back in the States now. I know you guys probably don't follow these things, but I kind of do. And it tells me that it's becoming big. And maybe, Winston, that's an opportunity for you to grow again.
Yeah, I was told to contact them and try to, get a podcast with them or something. And
start with Mark. Start with Every Man Has a Story. That would be a great start for you, Winston.
Oh, yeah, I think he and I would get along. We have similar views.
Well, no, do an interview. Do a 40-minute interview with a guy and get the Happier Abroad on his, people on his channel, and maybe you'll start to get more traction. I don't know. It's worth trying.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to grow on YouTube. I mean, the stuff I talk about is a bit taboo, but Happier Abroad is more mainstream now, so it's more acceptable. I mean, I don't get videos deleted like I did before because it seems like international dating is more acceptable now.
You need to downplay some of the more sensitive stuff and focus on what's acceptable so that you can grow. Once you grow, then you can maybe, I don't know, but I think you really need to grow, and I think you could grow.
Yeah, I should be able to. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could be, sort of shadow banned in that they limit my growth too. I mean, it's possible.
I don't know about
because YouTube is run by an AI, and if it doesn't like something, it'll just
keep
you marginalized.
Winston, wait. AI seems to love you.
Oh yeah, the GPT seems to love me, but it's weird because Google doesn't seem to love me. But how does Chat GPT love me?
Well,
I thought they're
ChatGPT is,
connected, aren't
wait.
they?
No. ChatGPT is Microsoft.
Oh, but I mean,
They're
aren't they
competitive.
connected by the same hand? And
No. Actually, Google is now feels very threatened by this whole
oh,
ChatGPT
it's
thing.
a competitor then.
Yeah,
Okay.
Microsoft is going to use it to steal like search market share. They have 95% market share. This is the first time they've ever felt so threatened, and they've had a lot of layoffs. And I think they've really taken notice because in terms of AI, Microsoft
Uh-huh.
is a year or two ahead of Google, I think.
Yeah, that's good because I don't want Google to dominate everything. I mean, they have too much monopoly power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, well, anyway, guys, we're at 1 hour and 50 minutes almost. And what do you guys think? Is this a good, do you think today's podcast will be good, or is it too long? What do you think, Winston and Frank?
I don't know. Maybe you could just cut it up into parts or something. I don't know what your editing process is, Winston, but I mean, yeah, maybe the whole thing, you could put it out in several parts.
In
I don't know.
topics,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll send you the file, Winston. I'll send you the audio file.
Yeah, well, I have I'm recording too. I have a copy. I mean, it's 1 hour and 40 minutes here, but I don't know. I mean, do you think it's better to separate into 40-minute sections like Mark does? And
Well, no, not go by topic. It doesn't have to be absolute like 40 minutes. It could be like,
oh,
Probably
YouTube
yes.
has an automatic divider now. I think it divides the
oh
videos
yeah,
into
you can do
sections.
that. And you can have topics and have an outline. Yeah, if you know how to do that. Do you know how
Yeah,
to
I
do
have to
that?
figure that out. I think there's a program. I mean, I think there's an automatic feature you can turn on that does it automatically. I'm not sure. I have to look
I'm
into
not
that.
sure. I think you have to timestamp it yourself. I'm
Yeah,
not too sure
probably you
about
have to do it manually, I would guess. I mean, it's not that smart. By the way, I'm going to be in Taiwan starting on March 6th, and perhaps you and we can do another podcast with somebody, or even talk to Frank again. Uh, so yeah, I'll probably see you there, Winston,
Yeah,
if you're
and
still there.
Rock, you're a good interviewer. I mean, you should be like Mark and just interview a bunch of expats and stuff
Yeah,
and
I
have a
like
channel
interviewing,
like that.
but I think maybe. I mean, there's flaws with this one. Maybe we kind of went too long on a lot of things. But anyway, I think Frank said pretty much everything he wants to say. He got everything he wanted out there. Is that true, Frank?
Yeah, sure. I
So
mean, you never know what it's going to sound like. I mean, we can always like ditch this one, do another one.
yeah,
Yeah, it's always good to practice. There's
I
probably a
think if
few.
we divide it up, that'll solve the length problem. If we put topics on
Mhm.
each one, people can choose the ones they really want to hear. Um, okay. What time is it there, Frank?
9:50 at night.
All right, almost bedtime. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, Winston, I'll look forward to seeing you soon. I'll keep you in. I'll keep you in the loop. You said something about a museum in Jai. It might be interesting. Um, and Frank, thank you. I think this is the most you've ever talked to the Happier Abroad community,
Yeah.
and I hope you'll once in a while you'll still post on the forum. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I can even remember my password.
yeah, and thank you both, guys. Anything else either one of you want to say before we close it?
No, that's about it. Thanks to you guys.
Yeah,
Good talking to you.
Winston.
Well, yeah, I mean, just keep up the hope and remember where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay,
Inspirational.
so I'm going to end the recording now.
Okay.
I stopped the recording.
Okay, I'll
I'm
stop
going
it
to
too.
save it.